Australian government will ban recreational use of e-cigarettes.
Federal government will ban recreational vaping.
Australia, which already has some of the strictest smoking regulations in the world, has just banned vaping for recreational use.
It's utter devastation. The Australian vape industry and the vape community as such received a nuclear bomb today.
Craig Jackman's Theberton vape store is about to become collateral damage.
Totally gutted my...
Collateral damage in a war on vaping by the Australian government and the TGA.
The TGA is the fuckwits that brought in the prescription system a little over 12 months ago, and like pretty much everyone in the industry told them this was a terrible idea and is going to result in a black market, and it has.
What's not in dispute is this booming market has been pushed underground.
It's a de facto prohibition. Every month, millions of illicit, unregulated vapes are imported into Australia.
The Australian government seems to believe that history never repeats. The prohibition of alcohol a century ago was a failure. Prohibition fueled a massive black market with soaring crime rates, gang violence intensifying, and yet alcohol was still widely available.
Cheap disposable vapes are pouring in from factories in China, sold here by local dealers to convenience stores and tobacconists as part of the illicit trade.
You've got disposables that have exploded over the last 12 months in Australia, being sold by fucking Uber drivers and corner stores, and not vape companies at all. They're being sold on the black market by fucking just people. And yeah, of course, the youth have taken them up, and yeah, the Therapeutic Goods Administration are freaking out because their stupid, ridiculous prescription model has blown up in their face.
Big Tobacco has taken another addictive product, wrapped it in shiny packaging, added sweet flavours to create a new generation of nicotine addicts.
Hold on a second. Current legal vapor products available in Australia are not big tobacco products. What is available are products developed and sold by SMEs, independent vape companies with no ties to big tobacco.
People like to go on about the problems of vaping faces as attributed to big tobacco. It's not. Big pharmaceutical is behind all of this. And if you follow the money, it's fucking pretty obvious what's going on here.
Big tobacco's in the thick of it.
The tobacco industry lobbies, and they lobby hard. You have to be willing to stare them down.
To stare them down and look inside their wallet. Whilst accusing the independent vapor industry and harm reduction advocates of being paid by big tobacco. Meanwhile, both major parties have been accepting political donations from big tobacco for years.
How are you comfortable then with accepting donations from big tobacco, because the National Party does?
They do. And
so you said your father's experience. You talked about people going into hospital with these illnesses.
Cigarette smoking it's a legal entity in Australia, and we won't even start where Labor's accepting their donations.
But you can say no to donations, because we are talking to you about people getting addicted to nicotine. You can say no to those donations.
It's a legal product, smoking, and whilst it's a legal product, we won't even start where Labor's getting their donations from.
But you're not happy accepting those donations from?
Well, I'm not happy with the number of young people vaping. I'm not happy with the million or more Australians vaping. But it's a fact. We must address it.
Australia is set to ban all single-use disposable vapes in the nation's biggest anti-smoking crackdown in a decade.
Well, the cost of a packet of cigarettes will rise by $10, and vapes will only be sold in pharmacies as part of a government crackdown.
Today I announced that tax on tobacco will be increased by 5% per year over the next 3 years, starting on September 1st, because we know that a higher priced cigarette is a more unattractive cigarette.
Their idea is that a more expensive cigarette is a less attractive cigarette, which we all know is rubbish, because since the government started heavily taxing cigarettes, smoking rates have kind of plateaued. They've stayed the same. The same people that are smoking are the same people paying more for their cigarettes. contributing over $14 billion in the last financial year to the government's coffers. Just remember that figure. $14 billion is what the government gets from cigarettes. So they're leaving cigarettes alone. They're taxing them a little bit more, but you won't be able to get your vapes at a vape shop. You'll still be able to get your smokes at any fucking service station or supermarket or corner store.
Smokers who want to switch from deadly cigarettes to much safer vaping have to jump through hoops to do that. But if they want to keep using deadly cigarettes, they can get them very easily from 20,000 outlets. That's crazy.
Over summer, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, the TGA, consulted health groups and our community, and they provided us with a clear roadmap. The first thing to do is to stop the import of vapes that are not destined for pharmacy shelves to be sold as a therapeutic product with the approval of a health professional.
Do you really think that prohibiting flavors, prohibiting vape stores, prohibiting the import of big hardware devices that are expensive, that are costly, that are bulky, and that appeal to adults is going to wipe away the black market?
What is your assessment of the reforms that were announced this time yesterday by the Health Minister? Do they make sense to you?
I was very excited to hear that the Health Minister is going to make decisive and bold action on vaping reforms, particularly that the importation of all vaping products, regardless of whether they contain nicotine or not, will be prohibited unless those products are bound for a pharmacy. This is going to turn off that tap of illicit products that have been flooding the market in Australia.
I am really proud of the changes that Mark Butler announced today in relation to vaping.
Absolutely support this. This is a great initiative. We know that a new young generation of Australians are being hooked on vapes, and this is a fantastic initiative. So the AMA have been calling for it. We're delighted it's going to happen.
Whilst the Australians pat themselves on the back and celebrate their win, will this have knock-on effects across the ditch in New Zealand and beyond?
Australia has just announced a major crackdown on vaping, effectively banning the recreational use of e-cigarettes.
The only way you'll legally be able to get your hands on one is in a pharmacy with a prescription. And it's sparked calls for changes to happen here.
We have got our vaping settings all wrong, and we are going to regret it big time. I'm up for even looking at bans.
20% of our youth who are regular vapers is terrible, and we need to address it now.
Hold up, Letitia. The study you referenced was a casual study with no basis in science. According to the ASH New Zealand Year 10 study, experimentation is common, but daily vaping is just 4 to 5% of 14 and 15-year-olds in 2022.
Australia's had prescription only for a number of years now, yet they're at 14% youth vaping, so it's not necessarily stopped young people accessing vapes, and the vapes they're accessing in Australia are illegal.
You need a prescription for the nicotine vapes, no prescription for cigarettes. Why?
Well, because cigarettes have very deep roots in the community. They've been around for decades, and I think tobacco control...
worse for your health.
Oh, they are terrible for your health. They remain a major killer of Australians and people across the world. But I think tobacco control experts recognise that they do have deep roots in the community, and it requires quite a different, more sophisticated suite of measures to drive down tobacco use.
Because there'd be too much of a black market for cigarettes, is that the problem?
Well, but also because there are deeply ingrained habits that some people have had for many decades.
You are committing the greatest crime in Australian medical health history by increasing, by fanning the flames, by fertilizing the black market. You're going to see it extend beyond belief.
But you can guarantee that with this new change, you're going to see even more black market sales of vapor products, because this import scheme is not going to work. It didn't work with the prescription-only system. It's certainly not going to work now.
It seems that the Australians are trying to regain their glory days of being the leaders in tobacco control, and will sacrifice their own citizens in their quest to be at the top of the heap. Only problem being is that this policy is going to cause more harm than good.